Welcome to day 12, your last day of chapter 1. Here we go. So today what we're going to talk about is equations of circles in standard form and my absolute fave, completing the square. So first thing I want to talk about though is the standard equation of a circle. So this is what we're going to call the standard equation of a circle. It takes your x value, subtracting your center, squaring it, plus the y value, subtracting your y value of your center, and then it equals the radius squared. So just a quick visual for you. Remember the center is HK, R stands for radius, and XY is a point. So example 1, let's write the equation of the circle with that center and radius. So the center, remember we can call it HK, and the radius is R. Well, plug into that equation, x minus negative h plus the y minus k equals the radius squared. So 3 squared is 9. And there's your first equation. Part B is now asking, does the point negative 4, 3 lie on that circle? So in a way, it's asking this point right here, xy, or negative 4, 3, is that on the actual circle? Well, the best thing is I have this equation, and I have an x and a y. So look at that. Oh, hello. This is the x, this is the y, and we'll see if it's still a true statement. So fun. Instead of x, put negative 4. Instead of y, put 3, because that's the questions that it's asking to see if that's on there. And I'm going to put a big question mark. Does the right equal the left? Well, negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. 3 minus 1 is 2. Now I'm trying to see, is this true? Well, negative 2 squared is 4. 2 squared is 4. Does 8 equal 9? No way, Jose. So all you have to say is no. The point negative 4, 3 is not on the circle. Easy as that. Fun. Okay, now we're going to complete the square to find the equation of a circle in standard form. So our goal is to always get it back to this form so we can read it. We can easily find the center, find the radius, and we're good to go. But sometimes they'll give it to us in a form like this. And we're blah, not fun. So we're going to complete the square to get there. So I kind of wrote these directions out or took it from the book. What we're going to do is convert this equation into standard form. We're going to do this by grouping the x terms together, grouping the y terms together, and moving any constants to the other side. So we just took this equation, grouped the x's together, grouped the y's, and moved that constant forward to the other side. Notice there's extra space. That's key. We want to leave extra space so we can visually figure this problem out, because we're going to add something there. Now, what we're going to add is half the coefficient of x and square it. The big helper, b divided by 2 squared. When you think complete the square, this is what you think. I'll even start the whole thing. It's so important. Well, let's jump with this example. The b value here for my x's is 10. Well, 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So that's what goes in this gap right here. Now, back to like first grade. Can you just add 25 to one side and say you're good? No, if you add it to one side, you have to add it to the other. Now we'll take the b value for the y's. The b value is negative 6. using our handy-dandy formula, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is plus 9. And that goes right here. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. That's super important. Now, cleaning it up, we see that the right side here is going to equal 38. I actually already have that there. But the left side, in order for us to complete the square, take the term, complete the square, I have to make sure that this term can turn into one term squared. Complete the square. Well, with my lovely factoring ability that we all know and love, this does factor to x plus 5 squared. Same thing here. If I completed the square properly, this is going to simplify to a term squared. So factoring, add to the middle term, multiply to the end. This would be y minus 3. So there's my equation. You just completed the square. We got it to our standard form, which from here it's very easy to see what my center is. Center is opposite of that x value, opposite of the y value. And my radius is always the square root of the right side. Because remember, in standard form, it's r squared. I don't want what r squared is. I want r. So square root of 38. If you are able to simplify your square roots, please do so. Simplify those radicals. If you need help with that, please ask, but it is expected that you can simplify those radicals. Okay, let's do just a couple more examples with completing the square here. We're going to determine the center and radius, and why not? Let's find the x-intercepts. Oh, we're going to find the y. Change my mind. We're finding the y-intercepts. Well, this is looking gross, so let's complete the square. Step 1, put your x's together. X squared minus 10x. I'll even put the parentheses. Let's put our y terms together. And I have to move over any constants I have. So that 17 is now moved to the right side. My favorite formula, b divided by 2 squared. That's our complete the square. Looking here, my b value is negative 10. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is plus 25. What you do to one side, please don't forget to do on the other. I'm even using different colors because it's that crucial that we remember. The same thing for y. The b value is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. If you add it to one side, please add it to the other. You know you did it right if the x's can be turned into a term squared, a binomial squared. Well, it can. X minus 5 squared is equivalent here. Your y's can be turned to y plus 1 squared. If you simplify that right side, negative 17 plus 25 plus 1, you get 9. And there's my standard form. I do this for the reason of finding my center. The center, ooh, where did that go? Or my HK is 5, negative 1. Oh, golly geez. Sorry, my dears. Is 5, negative 1. Radius is not 9. It's the square root of 9, which is 3, because it has to be a positive distance, so it needs to be positive 3. The last part I asked is now that y-intercept. When you find the y-intercept, all you have to do is plug in x equals 0. Right? Y-intercept, x is 0. So go to this equation. So I'm going to take this one right here and just plug in 0 for x. Oh, that makes no sense. Right? Because you have a 0 equaling a number. Like, what? You could do it that way. It's just going to take a little longer. Right? We want to be simplified. So how about we actually take the original? That would be more efficient. Not wrong to the other way. Just, we're efficient people. So y-intercept, plug in 0 everywhere you see an x. A lot of things cancel. And it already becomes factored, which is nice. This term goes away, that goes away. So you're left with just y squared plus 2y plus 17 equals 0. Again, you would have got it the other way, but we're trying to be efficient. And my goal is solve for y. Well, I'm going to try to factor, but I can't think of any terms that add to 2 and multiply to 17. I can't do any greatest common factor. So the only thing left I can do, quadratic formula. No big deal. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Doing this, you'll actually see that under the square root will become a negative number. This should be a huge red flag. Negative number under the square root will give you an imaginary number. Well, if it's imaginary, that means it doesn't actually cross the y-axis. There's no y-intercept. That x equals 0 doesn't happen. So all you have to write, no y-intercept. If it was a value you could simplify, of course do so. But in this case, it will not because it is a negative under the square root. Okay, please pause the video. You try this next one, and then I'll do it in detail. Okay, hopefully you paused. Here we go. I'm going to first put my x's together, which they kind of are. I'm going to put my y's together. And then I'm going to get that 63 over to the other side. Now, if you're trying this, you kind of got stuck, I kind of wanted you to, because you're going to learn a very important fact about the a value in front. You actually have to factor it out. The a value needs to be 1, which means factor out a 4 from your first term, get x squared minus x. Factor out a 4 from your second term because that makes the a value now 1. And now we can keep going. This is a very important fact. A has to be 1. The coefficient in front of your squared term needs to be 1. If you tried doing it without factoring, you wouldn't get the right answer without that GCF. So now let's do our b divided by 2 squared. For our first term here, our a value is negative 1. Negative 1 divided by 2 is negative 1/2. Negative half squared is positive 1/4. Now again, you would never just add it to one side, but this 4 has to be applied, right? It's being factored out. So if I'm looking at just this section right here, I added a 1/4 times 4. Really what I did right here, 4 times a 4th, I really just added 1. Because 4 times a 4th is 1. Let's see if this worked. I should be able to factor this trinomial into a binomial squared. Well, okay, I have the 4 out here. What term adds to negative 1 and multiplies to 1/4? Well, it's x minus 1/2. So it worked. Here, if you really want to look at it, you can do y minus 0 squared. Same thing, your call, have fun with it. Showing that the y value of the center is 0. And now we're super close to getting our equation of our circle. But there's these extra 4's now in front. Can't have them. Divide everything by 4. And now look at, we have our equation of a circle. I'm just going to leave it like this. Voila. Center, 1/2, 0, because the y term is 0. And the radius is the square root of 16, so it's 4. Let's quickly do that y-intercept. One more for great practice, never hurts. So y-intercept just means plugging in x is 0. So we got 4 times 0 squared, 4 times 0 plus 4y squared minus 63. Again, I'm taking the easiest one, so it's just that original. You definitely can do the one at the bottom, but again, let's make our lives easy. Goes away, goes away. I have 4y squared equals negative 4y squared minus 63 equals 0. So let's get y by itself. Divide both sides by 4. Take the square root. That's going to be plus or minus. You can leave it as the square root of 63/4. Or let's plug into our calculadoras, 3.97. So that's your y-intercept. And if we write it in proper notation, y-intercept x is 0. So 0, negative 3.97, and the point 0, positive 3.97. So if you made the mistake at the beginning of not having your a value equal 1, because I sent you there trying to have you fail, so that you can see how important it is. So please make sure you understand that fact of factoring out to get an a value of 1. Okay. One final one. We can do it. If you want to pause the video and try it on your own, go for it. This is one final complete the square example. Let's put our x's together. Put our y's together. And move over that 5. Just like we talked about in problem B, your a value has to be 1. So I need to factor out a 4 from this problem to get 1 x squared. And yeah, you have to take it out of every term. So 6 divided by 4 is the same thing as 3/2. Here the y value, sorry, the a value is not 1, so you have to factor out whatever number will give you a 1 for the a value. 8y divided by 4 is just 2y. And nothing has to happen on the right. Let's complete the square. So b divided by 2 squared. For the first term, you have 3 over 2 divided by 2 squared. Well, 3 divided by 2, square it. Ooh, here we go. You get 9 over 16. Well, yeah, you added 9 over 16, but it also has to be multiplied by 4. So right here, I really added 4 times 9 over 16, which is the same thing as 9/4. Then over here, the b value is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So yes, I'm adding a 1, but it has a 4 being multiplied to it. Right here, I did not just add 1. I did 1 times 4. So plus 4. Let's make sure I did it correctly, that I can factor that trinomial into something squared. What adds to 3/2 multiplies to 9 over 16. is 3/4. This one's nice and easy. What multiplies to 2, add to 1. This one, I don't know why that's so huge. Cute. And then if you simplify the right side properly, you'll get 5/4. We're so close. Put these extra 4s in front. Divide them out. Then you get your nice standard equation of a circle. And the right side is 5/16. Rapid fire center, just the opposite of your x, opposite of your y. Radius is the square root of 5/4, because if you square root the denominator, you get 4. And then if you do the y-intercept, x is 0, I'm going to tell you there's not going to be a y-intercept. And I'd like you to confirm that. It might be a fact where there's a square root under, a negative under a square root. Maybe, maybe. So take a look, make sure you can find that y-intercept is none. I'm going to leave you with a lovely partner challenge. My hint to you, draw it. Please work with people, talk to people, have fun, and I'll check you on the flip side.